do it! He got the powers of the Pirate King! Adolescence!
This scene is from one of the most influential anime that a lot of people have never seen or ever even heard of. Fooly Cooly is a short 6-episode anime that had some of the biggest impact on animation as a whole. In 6 short episodes, it has produced some of the most iconic and memorable scenes in animation history. And this went on to inspire some famous and well-known shows, writers, directors, animators, and just creative people as a whole. This specific scene, which I feel like is the scene that everyone tends to think of when it comes to Fooly Cooly, actually inspired the design for the Avatar: The Last Airbender. Naota, after absorbing the power of Adolescence, becomes a bright glowing red color with eyes glowing bright white, and a symbol on his head which stands for adulthood. And these exact bright eyes and symbols are what inspired Giancarlo Volpe, the director of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Using this scene is how he created Aang's avatar state with his glowing eyes and glowing arrow on his head. Volpe actually forced every member of his staff to buy and watch the entire 6-episode anime in order to understand the giant gap that American animation and Japanese animation have. But not just that, he wanted to show everyone what he considers to be the pinnacle of animation, which is Fooly Cooly. Now, I'm sure a lot of you that watch both anime and Avatar: The Last Airbender, you could kind of see that there are many anime elements to the show. And Volpe, like I said, using Fooly Cooly, he wanted to strive for that while creating this show. The Avatar is actually what Volpe considers to be a love letter to Gainax Studios, which created Fooly Cooly and just Japanese animation as a whole. And that's not the only American-based animation that was heavily inspired by Fooly Cooly. Teen Titans, which is another American animated show that if you watch as a child, you could definitely see there's a lot of anime similarities when it comes to the style and the action, especially the fight scenes. And yes, I mean the original Teen Titans, not whatever the hell they did with Teen Titans Go. Just to give a few of the examples here, in the episode Employee of the Month, the moped that Beast Boy was riding on looks exactly like the iconic Vespa ridden by Haruko. He even wears the scarf, goggles, and helmet combo, which is the exact same getup that Haruko was wearing when riding this Vespa. In another episode called Transformation, Starfire happens to get growths on her forehead and even pushes that growth back into her head, which is something that Naota does and deals with throughout the anime. And then there's another episode referencing the growth on Naota's head in Teen Titans where Robin is the one who gets that growth on his forehead. And then this growth shoots out and turns into a different version of himself from a different dimension, which is exactly what happens in Fooly Cooly. As when Naota gets hit in the head with Haruko's Rickenbacker base, it ends up creating a portal to a different world through Naota's head. Sounds confusing? We'll get into that later. The anime Kill la Kill, which if you have seen this show and you've seen Fooly Cooly, it's already pretty obvious that there are quite a lot of similarities when it comes to the style. But there are loads of different references to Fooly Cooly in this show. Honestly, if you look at Trigger as a whole company, it has heavy inspiration from the style of Fooly Cooly and just Gainax Studios in general. Anime like Gurren Lagann, Kill la Kill, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, Darling in the Franxx, Promare, the list goes on. The inspiration that you could see in these shows and movies are quite obvious. And more recently, we even have the creator of Chainsaw Man, Tatsuki Fujimoto, stating that he was heavily inspired by Fooly Cooly, describing his hit series Chainsaw Man as a wicked Fooly Cooly and a pop Abara. He even went on to talk about how some of the main female characters in his show Chainsaw Man are directly inspired from Fooly Cooly. Makima is actually based on Haruko, and if you've watched Fooly Cooly, it makes a lot of sense. Haruko being a master manipulator and everything she does is for her own self-gain. Or should I say her main goal, which is exactly what Makima does throughout the show. Power is also based on Haruko as well, but it's more of Haruko's personality and insane quirks, because Haruko is absolutely bonkers insane throughout the show. Hamino is based on Mamimi, and Mamimi is another manipulative character who throughout the show, along with Haruko, constantly manipulates the main character Naota in order to cope with her own issues. Mamimi is actually an extremely tragic character, and we'll get into that later. Just like Himeno in Chainsaw Man, she is kind of a tragic character as well. You can really start to see the similarities not only in characters, but the story as a whole. In Chainsaw Man, multiple characters manipulate the main character Denji in order to get what they want. And I would like to admit Chainsaw Man is a bit different because they're manipulating Denji through his sex drive, where in Fooly Cooly, it's a bit more nuanced with that, with manipulation based on just Naota being a naive child wanting to prove that he is mature. Now, don't get me wrong, throughout the show, sometimes they do manipulate Naota through his sexual desires, but it's a lot more nuanced in Fooly Cooly than it is in Chainsaw Man. In Chainsaw Man, it's basically, he wants to touch some titty, and that's it. But not only that, the famous cigarette that reads the phrase, "Never knows best," is also referenced in Chainsaw Man as well. Even South Park makes a reference to Fooly Cooly in one of their episodes, which is kind of hilarious because in Fooly Cooly, there's an entire scene animated in South Park style. There's even been games that have referenced Fooly Cooly, like Enter the Gungeon, for example. One of the bats in the game with the description, "Nothing can happen until you swing the bat," referencing my favorite episode called Full Swing. And another item called Brittle Bullet, which is the title of another Fooly Cooly episode with the description, "It takes an idiot to do cool things. That's why it's cool." Arby's! Yeah, Arby's even made a goddamn reference to Fooly Cooly in a tweet in 2017, and it's just a 12-second video showing a yellow Vespa driving up and grabbing some bags of food with the title "Ride on a Shooting Star," which is the title of the outro song of Fooly Cooly. So it's safe to say these quick 6 episodes had an insane impact on not only animation as a whole, but was an inspiration to any and all artists. Now, before we move on into this chaotic world of Fooly Cooly, let's talk about today's sponsor, Geology. Now, we all know how important it is to take care of our skin, but figuring out where to start can be quite a challenge. That's where Geology comes in, making skincare simple and effective with routines personalized just for you. Geology is a 32-time award-winning skin, hair, and body care company. Most of us understand the importance of skincare routine, but don't know where to begin. And let's face it, everyone's skin is unique. Whether you're dealing with acne, dark circles, aging, or just want clear and healthy skin, Geology simplifies your skincare journey. Their process starts with a quick 60-second quiz where you can share your skin goals. Based on your answers, Geology crafts a dermatologist-grade personalized routine that's delivered directly to your door. With 32 prestigious awards under their belt, including accolades from Men's Health, Oprah Daily Grooming Awards, Geology truly has been changing the game. They make sticking to a skincare routine effortless with products tailored just for you. Ready to commit to better skin? Now is the perfect time. Use my code to get 100% off your first order of your personalized skincare trial set. Plus, you get to enjoy 50% off any add-ons. Make sure you click that link in the description, or you could always use the barcode on the screen. So what exactly makes these small 6 episodes of a show so special? I mean, it's just 6 episodes, right? Why does Fooly Cooly stand out among the slew of different anime that we see all the time in the world? Well, in order to really explain that to you, let's talk about another anime. Hell, Fooly Cooly actually lives in the shadow of this anime and is way more well known and probably has a bigger impact on animation in general, Evangelion. Now, Evangelion and Fooly Cooly were actually made by the same studio, Gainax. Now, I know you're wondering, why is this video not about Evangelion then? If Evangelion had a bigger impact, why Fooly Cooly? Now, when you think about Evangelion, what's the first thing you think of? Is it the animation? No. Not really. The first thing you think about is the insanely deep and intricate story behind the show. Some people don't even consider this to be a show, but rather an experience, which you could kind of say the same thing about Fooly Cooly. Because once you finish this show, you realize everything was just symbolism. You end the show extremely confused, and then you start piecing everything together as you go along. And once you start realizing all of this was just about something way deeper, then it starts making sense. Most anime watchers actually deem Evangelion to be the greatest anime of all time, no contest. But here's where I'm going to make a lot of people upset. Whenever I watched Evangelion, I didn't like it. And it's not that I didn't understand it. I actually researched the show. I watched it again. I tried to figure out what was this thing that I just couldn't put my finger on that I just did not like about this show. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the story or not necessarily understanding the story. I agree, the deep meanings behind the show are brilliant and the writing is downright genius, but I just could not get myself to like the show. And it took me to watch Fooly Cooly to finally realize why I didn't like Evangelion. There's one thing that Evangelion and Fooly Cooly have in common. It's the fact that on the surface, it doesn't really make much sense. You need to think a little bit more deeply to truly understand what's going on, and that is exactly why Fooly Cooly is better than Evangelion. The thing about Fooly Cooly, you could watch this show, not understand a goddamn thing, and love every second of it. You don't even need to spend time trying to understand what happens, trying to understand these deeper underlying meanings and symbolism. You can just watch it and enjoy it. There are so many times I hear people describe this show in that very way. I have no clue what I just watched, but goddamn it, I loved every second of it. Is there super deep underlying symbolism in this show? 100%. Do you need to spend that time going to dig and theorize in order to truly enjoy this show? No, you don't. And that's when I realized the problem with Evangelion. The reason I didn't really like it that much, it's that very thing. Evangelion is just not a good watch on the surface. Whereas Fooly Cooly is frantic, hilarious, confusing, stylistic, with a soundtrack that you will listen to in your car the rest of your goddamn life by the pillows. Honestly, the show feels like a long music video with new short stories every episode with one overarching story that all makes sense. You know, we could say, hey, this is just comparing apples to potatoes, man. They're completely two different shows with two completely different meanings. And this is even more solidified by the creators of the show themselves. The director of Evangelion himself, Tsurumaki, stated that he wanted Fooly Cooly to be an animation playground. He also wanted it to be the complete opposite of Evangelion when it came to its somber, depressing tone. He wanted it to just be pure chaos and fun. With Evangelion, there was this feeling that you had to be better, be smart to understand it, or even just to work on it. With Fooly Cooly, I want to say that it's okay to feel stupid. That phrase summed up the reason why I feel so strongly about Fooly Cooly, because the only way to enjoy Evangelion is to spend that time understanding its deeper meanings. But Fooly Cooly you can enjoy with or without those deeper meanings. And that sentiment in of itself is the whole theme of Fooly Cooly. At its core, it's a story about growth. It's a story about growing up and how you're going to fail. You have to take those chances, and you are going to look absolutely stupid doing it.
Anyway, nothing can happen till you swing the bat.
Yoji Inokito, who is the writer of the show, states that it doesn't matter if the content is completely absurd. Rather, it is the surface absurdity with which we compete for. However, there is only one thing that must not be a lie: the creators wish to express the theme. And the chaos with Fooly Cooly doesn't just exist with the show itself, but the production of the show is exactly the same. Even taking a look at the notes of Tsurumaki, you could see how different creating the show was going to be. So here's another reason why Fooly Cooly has completely changed animation. Normally what would happen when it comes to any animation is you write the script would be created, it would be handed over to the storyboard artist, and then they would animate off that said script. However, they kind of loosened that concept when it comes to Fooly Cooly. Instead of waiting to have that script completed, they actually brought the animators into the writing process itself. They wanted the animators to have full creative control when it came to that. Something that is very off the beaten path of normal animation. They basically let them run wild as long as it stays within the specific theme of the show. They wanted the writing to breathe through the animation itself, because at the end of the day, you don't really need dialogue necessarily to tell a story. A story can be told through brilliant animation. And there are moments in this show where when it comes to the dialogue, you feel completely lost, but somehow you still understand what's going on just by the animation itself, the theme and the message of it all. We wanted to convey the message that this anime is chaotic and anything goes. We wanted it to be just animation without any restrictions on expression typical of the genre. And that quote rings true when it comes to the restrictions, because the show utilizes a technique that is even referenced in the show multiple times, breaking the fourth wall, called the Kaneda style. So let's talk about Kaneda style. It is, in simple terms, fluidity, especially in fight scenes, where there is no clear-cut shapes or forms or lines. This is actually the very thing that a lot of people complain about in modern anime. I mean, sometimes I will admit, it can be done poorly at times. Just to give a solid example of modern day Kaneda style, it was used a lot in season 3 of Jujutsu Kaisen, but at the same time, it was met with a lot of backlash. A lot of people were saying the animation was lazy, crappy, boring. Now, not only were the animators completely worked to the bone and treated harshly and didn't even get the series to its final form that it deserved, but it is a prime example of Kaneda style, where a lot of people see lazy animating. I see beautiful, fluid fight scenes. I don't care what anyone says about the animation of that. The animation was incredible and is a solid use of Kaneda style. And Kaneda style is thrown throughout Fooly Cooly, not just action scenes, but all over the place. They really went full force with the animation freedom. But this style definitely makes action scenes just hit a lot harder. They make you feel impacts more. Yoshinori Kaneda is actually the father of this style and is responsible for the popularity of Kaneda style. He even played a core role in Studio Ghibli productions and was a huge inspiration for Fooly Cooly, obviously. But all of that formula combined, just these animators having fun and making the things that they specifically want to make, regardless of how silly or goofy or dumb it looks, as long as it fits that main theme, it stays. Throughout the show, you will constantly be confused as to what's going on. There are moments of full manga panels, moments where the animation looks bad on purpose, moments where the animation flip-flops multiple styles in one scene. There's even one moment in the show where they do an entire South Park animated scene. There are fourth wall breaks, there are horror elements, loads of comedy. The action is intense, it's brilliant. I guess there's something coming out of his head. Why did she hit the child in the head with a Rickenbacker bass? Who is this cat? What is with the giant iron that blows smoke? I have no clue what's going on. But god damn it, I love it. Now let's talk about something that Fooly Cooly did completely different that sets this show apart from the rest, something a lot of shows tend to neglect: the soundtrack. The entire soundtrack was written and performed by a Japanese band named The Pillows, an alternative rock band formed in 1989. And this alternative rock just adds to this chaotic nature of Fooly Cooly, with moments of punk rock, moments of emotional ballads, and Fooly Cooly once again completely changed the way this process works. Fooly Cooly decided to put the creative side first. They decided to put all of animation, music, everything first before the writing, which tends to not work, but somehow it worked, and it worked perfectly. Because instead of just, for example, finding music to fit the style of the show, or just hiring someone to create music for the show, like The Pillows did not write music for the show. It was actually Suramaki's favorite band at the time. And instead of just asking them, hey, can you make an album, based off this with this theme and this style, he just asked them to make an album. He didn't give him any direction. He didn't ask him for any style, anything whatsoever. He just wanted their music. And the thing about it, the animators built the scenes around the music itself, and you will notice that throughout the show. Like I said before in the beginning of the video, it feels like this entire show is just a music video. The soundtrack doesn't feel like background noise. It feels like a huge part of the show. They all work perfectly in tandem with each other, and the product is something special. And honestly, I think that's why The Pillows music stuck with me for so long. I listened to this soundtrack, and every time I listened to these songs, I could just picture the exact scene that's going on in my head. I could picture the emotion that is happening during that scene of the show. I didn't want a work that had everything depicted and comprehensible right on the surface. That depth is what makes it interesting. I'm fine with people finding the humor and action entertaining, or enjoying how the music from The Pillows perfectly matches the battle scenes and looks cool. Even if someone were to say it's just a promotional video for The Pillows, if they can enjoy it that way, that's fine. However, beneath the surface, there are hints of a more complex science fiction setting, and even further below that, there are complementary emotional themes. If people can delve into those depths and enjoy it on that level, that's perfectly fine too. Now, I know I've mentioned before multiple times, Fooly Cooly at its core is a coming of age story, but I feel like that is honestly insulting to label it as something so simple and generic. This isn't your average coming of age story because nothing really good happens in the show. As again, Tsurumaki states, simply put, it's the young adult genre. It's not the overly wholesome young genre of Weekly Shonen Jump magazine, nor is it the romantic comedy genre of Weekly Shonen Sunday. It's more about actively depicting the twisted and negative aspects of youth. I think it's about portraying young adult stories that don't always have a happy ending. And I feel like that's why so many people can attach themselves to the show. It just feels real, almost like you're having nostalgia for something that you didn't even know you had nostalgia for. And throughout the show, there are a lot of Western references, which I feel like is another reason why a lot of Western culture tends to love this show. Because growing up isn't easy. And like Tsurumaki says, it doesn't always have to have a happy ending. Something about this show, it just feels real. You can really attach yourself to any of these characters. The main character, Naota, who is constantly manipulated by his father, Haruko, Mamimi, and is permanently stuck in the shadow of his brother who lives in America. And the thing is, his brother isn't even seen throughout the entire show. It just stays as a looming presence. Honestly, how I like to view this show is the paradox of adulthood. Children, for example, they desperately want to grow up. They desperately want to grow up as fast as possible, get to adulthood as quick as they can. But adults, they desperately want to live their childhood life again. They don't want to grow up anymore. They want to go back to being children. Honestly, throughout the show, it kind of feels like the children tend to be more mature than the adults. And that rings true in so many of the characters in the show. However, that's just my specific theory. There are loads and loads of other theories that a lot of people have, and I have, for example, when it comes to the show, which is why I believe this show is, in its purest form, art. Because art isn't something that you look at and you think, oh, that is that thing. It cannot deviate from that thing. That's what it is. I believe that art is fluidity, just like Fooly Cooly's animation. I believe that art is whenever you yourself find meaning to that piece of art. The viewer is the one who interprets the art the way that they want to interpret it. And if you ever look up theories on this show, you will understand exactly what I mean. The theories are endless. The arguments are forever. And I don't think people realize that's exactly the point. When you watch the show, you have your own personal experience with the show. You have your own idea of what the show is about, and that's exactly what they wanted to do. That's art. Just to give an example, sometimes there's a song that you listen to and you really attach yourself to that song because you believe that this song is about this specific thing. And then whenever you find out, say the artist decided to tell everyone what it was about, or you looked up what it was about, it kind of ruins it for you, right? You want to hold on to what you believe that piece of art means to you. That's exactly what Fooly Cooly is meant to do, because it speaks to so many people in so many different ways. Now, does that mean the show doesn't have an actual story? Is it really just a bunch of metaphors and symbolism and that's it? Well, no, there actually is an overarching story beyond all of the layers that you could just sit back and enjoy. You could just watch the show and think it's about an alien and fighting robots and be happy. I know I've been rambling on about what this show is and isn't, and that this show basically can make no sense and loads of sense. However, let's talk about the surface layer plot. The story follows Naota, a 12-year-old boy living in the fictional Japanese suburb of Mabas. Naota's life is thrown for a loop whenever he meets a strange woman named Haruko, who proceeds to run him over with her Vespa and slam him in the head with a Rickenbacker bass, and this incident leaves Naota with a strange horn on his head. This horn on his head ends up turning into a portal, and whenever he expresses a strong emotion, he will open a portal and bring out fighting robots, and one of these robots named Kanti ends up staying with them. As Haruko's true intentions gradually become clear, Naota gets entangled in a battle involving robots, interstellar beings, and a mysterious medical mechanical organization. Haruko is actually a space patrol officer, and she has been searching the universe to find Adolescence, the Pirate King. Wow, it only took Fooly Cooly 6 episodes to find the Pirate King? Come on, One Piece, what are you doing? But she's been using this portal in Naota's head to try to bring Adolescence to her. Throughout the series, Naota deals with typical adolescent issues, such as feelings for Mamimi, his relationship with his family, and his struggle to find his own identity amidst the bizarre events around him. So even though the surface layer is a little confusing, it still makes sense and can be enjoyed. But let's break each character down a little bit more. Naoto is our main character and probably one of the most tragic characters throughout the show. He's a naive kid who lives in a town where, like he says multiple times, nothing interesting ever happens. And whenever Haruko shows up and smacks him in the head with the base, everything changes. Naoto's life is actually pretty rough. His big brother, who is mentioned and shadowed but never seen, is someone he looks up to. However, his brother now lives in America playing professional baseball. And constantly throughout the show, Naoto tries to prove that he is more mature than he is and wants to be like his brother. But every time, it seems like somehow it backfires. He has a manipulative relationship with Mamimi, who is obsessed with Naoto's brother. She actually uses Naoto as a coping mechanism while his brother is away. And the same goes for Haruko. Ever since Haruko opened that portal on Naoto's head, it seems she won't stop manipulating him. She won't stop poking and prodding at him and getting him to experience extreme emotions in order for that portal to open. And not only getting manipulated by those two women, but Naoto comes home to a perverted, neglectful father who only cares about himself and should honestly be arrested for the horrible things he does throughout the show. But Naoto never whines or mopes about these things, because in this moment of his life, he doesn't realize that this manipulation is actually happening. Even when Amaro comes into the picture and explains to Naoto how he's completely getting manipulated by Haruko, as Amaro himself actually got manipulated by Haruko a long time ago.
Eyebrows.
What about eyebrow?
He attempts to put on that facade of being mature, which is what a lot of teenagers do whenever they want to act like an adult. They'll just say, whatever, I don't care, that's just how it is. Whenever something bad happens, they just act like it just doesn't bother them because that's what an adult would do. And then when you get older, you realize, oh shit, I was getting manipulated that entire time, and all of that was just trauma. I feel like the episode Brittle Bullet has a really good example of this, because this is the episode where Naoto starts finding his own individuality, and he starts trying to make his own decisions. There's even a moment where a giant creature starts attacking the city, and Mamimi starts crying for Naoto's brother, and Naoto getting angry saying, hey, I'm the one right here, my brother's in America. He actually willingly lets Kanti devour him in order for Kanti to get into his fighting mode. In this whole situation, Naoto believed that he was the one being the hero. He was the one being in charge. And all that happens in the end is Kanti, or Adolescence in this moment, just poops out Naoto. Haruko literally just steps on Naoto while she is staring longingly into the screen of Adolescence. I feel like this scene truly shows how utterly garbage Naoto is treated throughout this show. Even when he himself is trying to take charge and do something, it still just ends horribly. Cooley does an incredible job of showing adolescence in the most real sense, because young kids and teenagers do get manipulated by older people all the time, but they just don't realize it when it's happening. Hell, half the time they just assume it's normal because that's all they know. However, throughout the show, we see Naoto's transformation into becoming more aware, more mature. Haruko even teaches him how to swing the bat. He finally stands up for himself multiple times, and the process of seeing a manipulator lose their interest in someone because they start becoming more self-aware and more mature is quite gut-wrenching to watch, but very real. Mamimi, for example, is another main character who constantly follows Naoto around, or at least she calls him Takun. She basically treats him as a pet, which is doubled down whenever she finds a stray cat, and even calls the cat by the same name, Takun, because that's all he is to her. He's just a pet. Now, Mamimi has loads of problems herself, which makes you understand why she manipulates Naoto throughout the show. Mamimi, she's poor, she's homeless, she gets bullied throughout school, she does some horrible things throughout the show, but you really kind of don't hate her. You start to empathize and understand her. You understand the reason that she does the things she does because she's troubled. You find out that she burns down buildings, but the reason she burns them down is because she has trauma of her past and hopes that maybe burning down that building will burn the memory away, but the ashes are still there. Even Naoto throughout the show starts realizing these things with Mamimi. He even starts to accept her manipulation because he feels bad for her. But there's a moment in the show that is very showing of how manipulation really works. Again, Naoto constantly becomes more and more mature throughout the show. And there is a moment in the show where he starts to get more self-confidence and even returns the advances back to Mamimi. And that actually makes her lose her interest in him completely, because she only liked him because of the fact that he didn't want her to kiss him. She used him as a sponge to soak up all of her problems, a toy, which leads to that phrase written on Mamimi's cigarette, which has become a staple of the show. never knows best. There's been a lot of speculation of what this phrase means, but to me it means Mamimi is just stuck in her ways. She will never get out of it. So when she sees Naoto do all these things, like swinging the bat, for example, in episode 4, after he swings the bat, we even get a shot of her looking depressed, disappointed, like she was hoping Naoto would be like her and never change. I'll never do this, I'll never do that, I'll never try that, never truly knows best until you try. Living life in a constant state of what ifs, which is why I find Mamimi's character to be one of the most tragic characters of the show, because she will never change. Next, we have Haruko. She is the staple of the show. She's definitely the poster child of this show when you see Fooly Cooly. She brings chaos to the world. Like I said before, after she hits Naoto in the head and the portal opens, she constantly follows him around, even starts living with him, all while she's constantly trying to poke and prod at him to get him to express an emotion in order to get this portal to open, whether that be anger, jealousy, or something as simple as getting a boner in order to get the portal open. She has one goal, and that goal is to find Adolescence. She will do whatever it takes to get there, and during all of this mayhem that she puts Naoto through, it actually in turn makes him more of an adult throughout. Which brings me to my favorite episode, which I've mentioned multiple times, Full Swing. This episode's all about baseball on the surface, but it's way more underneath. Now, as you know, Naoto's brother is a professional baseball player, and constantly throughout this episode, Naoto is just compared to his brother over and over. They're playing a baseball game against Haruko, and obviously Haruko is just destroying the entire team. And they constantly keep complaining about the fact that Naoto will just never swing the bat. He just stands at the plate and just gets struck out, but never swing. In turn, the entire team just constantly says, like, man, I wish Naoto's brother was here. He's nothing like his brother.
Anyway, nothing can happen till you swing the bat.
The whole episode is about Naoto's fear of swinging the bat. This episode really shows how far Haruko will go in order to get under Naoto's skin, by even acting like she's having sexual relations with his dad in order to get Naoto pissed off with his dad. But in reality, we find out that it was just a robot who looks like his father in order to get him to use his anger to swing the bat. That's fucked up. But ironically, all of this poking and prodding and pushing Naoto actually pushed him to swing the bat. And that leads to the climax of the episode, where a satellite threatened to destroy the entire city. But Haruko actually put all of this on Naoto to stop the satellite. She almost starts to become like his bigger sister. She starts to teach him things, like, for example, swinging the bat. It was very extreme the way that she taught him to swing the bat, and that bat just so happened to be a guitar. And once he finally did it, Haruko came in to help him launch the satellite back into space. And this was Naoto's first step into becoming his own person. The concept of swinging the bat has always stuck with me. It also fits with the cigarette that Mamimi was smoking. Never knows best, they correlate with each other. They both are about the idea of if you never make that choice to do something, nothing will ever happen. And that analogy of swinging the bat fits so perfect, because if you just constantly sit there and let the balls fly by you, just like in the beginning of the episode when Naoto was up to bat, he never swung the bat. That means you will never find out what happens if you do swing the bat. Never knows best. Now, one interesting quote-unquote antagonist throughout this show is Medical Mechanica. In the end, we find out that Medical Mechanica is an alien evil organization that is hell-bent on flattening out the world, or flattening the wrinkles on people's brains. At least that's what was said at the end of the show. And there's a lot of speculation as to what this means, but me personally, I feel like Medical Mechanica is just the idea of a 9-to-5 job, the idea of corporations and big corpa making everyone boring, making everyone zombies, flattening out your creativity. And that metaphor is amplified by the giant iron and the giant hand that is used to flatten out the world. I feel like that theory is amplified by the show itself, by the entire theme of just creativity in art. Of course, in a show about growing up, about creativity, about being yourself, about art, of course the antagonist is going to be that idea of just taking out your creativity. Now, the entire ending of the show is about the concept of Naoto accepting his manipulation and breaking out of it. Because throughout episode 6, we see Naoto following Haruko around almost in like a depressed daze. Because I believe this is where Naoto realizes that everything Haruko is doing to him is pure manipulation. And even though that is happening, he's still just staying with her. You know, the concept of being in a relationship with someone who is manipulative and not getting out of it. This happens all the time in life. But in the end, whenever Naota completely accepts her manipulation, he gains the power of Adolescence to fight Haruko. And when he was about to make the final blow on Haruko, he stopped himself and told her the words, "I love you," and gave her a kiss. Which in turn is basically the equivalent of saying, I get it, you fucked with me, you manipulated the shit out of me, you ruined my life, and you made me fall for you, but it's over, and I'm done. And then Adolescence flew away and Haruko went away with Adolescence. I feel like the final line of Naota to Haruko saying I love you was more of a thank you and goodbye kind of thing. Because throughout the beginning of the show, all Naota talked about is how boring his life is, how nothing ever fun happens in his life, and then she showed up. There were other characters in the show that all have interesting stories up for interpretation, like the class president and her bad home life and how she copes with it, the symbolism behind her fake glasses, the fake adult facade she puts up, Naota's father, who is a deadbeat who neglects his son and is a giant pervert, Kanti, who is some believe to be the representation of Naota's brother, Naota's friends, the cat. There are so many layers to this show, but the show is not meant for me to tell you what it's about. It's supposed to be about what you think the show is about, and that's exactly what you should go do.